12 months ago, the news of a mysterious respiratory illness started to emerge from hospitals in the central Chinese province of Hubei. Chinese health authorities said they were investigating a small cluster of pneumonia-like cases with an unknown cause linked to a seafood market in Wuhan. Those early days have given rise to any number of conspiracy theories that the emergence of COVID-19 was man-made, or that it was part of some unknown grand plan by the New World Order and part of the Great Reset. The last 12 months have seen these terms peddled around social media without evidence or explanation. Similarly, the whole of China, all 1.4 billion people apparently, have been demonised by conspiracy theories as the cause of COVID-19. Suspicion of anything Chinese has become a common thread on social media, despite the world's supply chains being inexorably wound up in a labyrinth of Chinese manufacturing and labour. Despite the online pushback on anything Chinese, it's highly likely that the world governments will do little other than continue their trade with the world's second largest economy. 12 months after the first cases emerged, the coronavirus is still continuing to spread, despite global efforts to quell COVID-19. But the efforts have been patchy, and in some countries, governments and citizens have only made half-hearted efforts to lock down. This has led to much pain, but without much gain. Now, the initial vaccines, which were produced and authorised in record time, are slowly rolling out. Millions of people have already been vaccinated, but poorer nations will have to wait. Certainly, it's going to take at least most of this year to get any meaningful proportion of the world's population vaccinated to provide some sort of viral roadblock to the further spread of COVID-19. It's important to realise that with little over 1% of the world's population infected over the past 12 months, COVID-19 still has a further 98.5% of the population to potentially infect. With all the mitigation efforts, lockdowns, closed schools and disrupted businesses around the world, this is where we're at, 12 months down the track, at the start of a long-term effort to control the spread of COVID-19. But the tallies we're seeing are acknowledged as likely fewer than the real-world tally, according to global health officials. Officially, as of the start of January, the COVID-19 virus has infected 85.1 million people across the globe and killed nearly 1.9 million. The coronavirus is still spreading, but not as much in countries that were forced into early lockdowns in the early months of 2020 to contain the virus. Indeed, many of the South and North Asian countries appear to be doing better at containing the virus when compared to their Western counterparts. At this stage, 3 countries, the US, India and Brazil, account for nearly half of the globe's confirmed cases in sheer numbers, according to worldometers.info. But per million of population, Western countries are prominent leaders in infections and deaths from COVID-19. But whilst the virus surges, treatments have improved immeasurably to reduce the death rate, as medical professionals discover effective treatments for the worst affected. Hospitals across the US, for example, have built an arsenal of new techniques to treat severely ill patients, but now find themselves overrun with the winter spike in caseloads. Our better understanding about the virus, tracked and analysed like no virus before, is our best hope as we head into 2021. And vaccination will continue to be our best bet to start to flatten the curve that is still on the rise globally. There will continue to be a lag between the best intentions of national health officials and the realities of supply and getting actual injections into the arms of the world's population. But for the short term, these daily counts will continue to rise and our patience will be sorely tested, with governments continuing their scramble to contain local outbreaks. 100 years ago, there was the last big global pandemic, the Spanish flu, which killed upwards of 50 million people around the world. A century later, some glaring similarities still ring clear. Although there's been 100 years of scientific and medical advancement, masks and lockdowns, both properly applied, are still our best fight against a novel respiratory virus. About the only change is that now the cheap medical masks come in blue as well. Lockdowns, when draconian and properly enforced, have also worked 100 years later. China, who certainly applied the most severe lockdowns and enforced them vigorously, emerged faster and were able to reboot their economy quicker. Thailand, too, applied nearly 2 months of lockdowns on its population very early on, pretty much restricting us to our homes. That also precipitated 6 months of extremely low case numbers until December the 20th, when a new outbreak kicked off around the seafood markets and fishing industry on the coast of the Gulf of Thailand. So 2021, whilst providing hope for a better year ahead, still has plenty of COVID challenges. But with the rollout of the new vaccines and better treatments for severe cases, there's a lot of promise as we tread gingerly into the next 12 months.